Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So we are at part 2 of our goat stand, and this is the assembly part. So if you're not interested in watching us put together furniture, well, maybe this one isn't the video to watch. But I was provided this goat stand free in return for my open, honest feedback. So this is from Goatzy. A huge thank you to Goatzy for providing this goat stand. It is a grooming / milking stand. In fact, it really is an all-purpose stand. It's portable, it's lightweight, and it is absolutely something I'm excited to give a try. Now, obviously, we haven't tried it yet. So the last video was unboxing. And in the unboxing video, I did mention the price point of $149. I forgot to mention that it is on an introductory pricing, and this again is November 2025, so time-bound that, of $139.99. So if you do want to check it out, I will put the link below. It is an affiliate link, so if you do decide to check it out, I will get a small percentage of that. But really, this is about true usability feedback. So disclaimer, thankfully, I did cut the last video at the unboxing because we then spent over an hour navigating the parts and the instructions and trying to get them straight in our heads so that we could do this on camera. We're pretty veteran putter-togethers. This isn't our first rodeo. The video that was provided with the stand was absolutely helpful, and it was instrumental. However, I've got a ton of feedback and lots of opinions. So we're going to get into it. But that's the purpose of this video, is really to show the assembly. And I'm going to talk over what we had to struggle with before we could show you this. So first things first, right? Goatzy is a brand new startup. This is their first product release. I expect improvements over time. Part of the reason that I agreed to do this is, one, they are a company that matches the values, or at least, they tell me they do, that I have in terms of US made, sustainability, the ability to really do things in the most environmentally friendly way. The stand is aluminum, it is lightweight, it is portable. It has a lot of amazing innovation innovation's not the right word, a lot of amazing value to it that doesn't come with most stands in this price point. Side rails, the ability to have wheels, the ability to have handles, right? I know that sounds silly, but handles are amazing when you want a portable stand. There are a few things off the bat, and I mentioned this in the last video, that are not included with this yet. So this is an adjustable height stand, but the adjustable height is a fixed height. It is not a winch where you can go up and down. It is not it does not have a ramp for ease of loading your animal onto a stand that is up at its max height. So that is a problem. Even for me with a miniature breed, I am not going to be able to pick up my larger goats and get them on the stand at full height, which is where I would want to work with them. So a ramp or a way for the animals to get on the stand would be incredibly helpful. At its lowest level, it's a little over 20 inches high. It says 18 in the description, and that's still manageable for me to be able to get even the bucks up on that with a little bit of help. I put their front feet up and then kind of scooch their back end up. But once you get past that height, they're not at a position where that would work, and I would not be able to lift them up and onto that stand myself. So that is a downside. The upside, It's got a lot of these features that are very cool, right? It's got adjustable height, which most don't have. It's got side rails, most don't have. The headset looks good. The size of the platform is large enough for a full-size goat, but not so large that it is going to be difficult to move around. The handles, super helpful. But we've got a problem with the assembly instructions. The instructions in the booklet do not match what we have in terms of parts and directions. The assembly video was a helpful reference, but it's a 2-minute video with no voiceover, and it makes it very challenging to pause and freeze frame the steps, trying to identify what side you're going to do things on, how you're going to do things, and it's not clear. So starting from the beginning, the instructions nor the box call out what tools you're going to need. We brought down every tool in the book, right? We brought down all the wrenches, all the screwdrivers, all the power tools, all the ratchet heads, thinking, okay, well, we'll have everything here because we're going to assemble this on camera straight off the bat. And as it turns out, you need some hex nuts and you have hex nuts and hex washers, so you need the ability to have the hex screws and wrenches. Yes, we have them. Yes, most farmers probably will have them, but it's not called out in the instructions in the materials list. It's just not, there's no reference at all. And with that type of specialized equipment, I say specialized, right? Most non-farmers are not going to have this type of stuff laying around to be able to use. We do. We had to go back and get it, but we do have it. But that is a big call out, and it should be in the instruction booklet at the very least, so that you don't get started assembling and realize you don't have the right tools, and maybe you don't even own the right tools, right? Those are things that need to be called out up front. Second, some of the parts and pieces called out in the instruction booklet are already pre-assembled on the stand itself. Now, the pre-assembly part is fabulous. Love pre-assembly. The less we have to do, the better. But it confused us a bit when we're trying to figure out, well, the instructions tell us to do this. We don't even have that part. What part are we putting on? And then you go look and you find it and it's already assembled. So I'm sure that was some innovation as the manufacturing process went, but the instructions need to be updated. The instructions leave a lot to be desired. The parts list needs a reference number or letter, meaning they show the picture of the parts, they show you how many parts of that particular item you're supposed to have, but they don't name them a conventional name, and they don't use a reliable reference to be able to say, oh, they're telling me this nut, not that nut, right? You have two different nuts in the set. They are identified in the parts list as two separate nuts with two different quantities, but when you go to assemble, the pictures are not different enough for us to figure out which nut they're talking about without just having some common sense, and even sometimes going back and forth from page to page. And we really had to read through the instructions in full, which honestly I never do. I always just go step one, step two, right? We had to go all the way through the instructions in advance and start to really figure out, oh, they mean this one, not that one. Otherwise, we'd be putting this thing together and taking it apart a half a dozen times as we figured out which parts we incorrectly identified. The pictures in the instruction booklet are not clear to the parts. For example, the legs, the leg extensions have 4 holes in them each. The picture of the leg extension shows just 1 hole, and it shows in the instruction that 1 hole goes on a specific side as you slide it into the sleeve. Well, that particular hole that showed in the instructions doesn't exist. And if you reference the video, you can kind of figure that out, but you have to be able to freeze frame and look at stuff, right? Which is not easy to do in a 2-minute video. Second is, when you're trying to really, follow the instructions to the T and live into the true testing of a product. And that's what I consider this. This is a product test for me, right? I was given the product for free. My opinions are my own. And as you can tell, they're pretty unbiased. So I would absolutely encourage the instructions to be rewritten. I would encourage the team to really take a look at the pictures that they apply to the instructions. They do not match the parts, at least not in all cases. And the words they're using, because there's very few words in the instruction booklet, but the words they're using aren't industry language, right? So they're calling things not what the hardware store would call them. And it makes it even harder to figure out what they're talking about. So, as mentioned, absolute nightmare figuring it all out. We ended up having to stage everything based on our pre-look. We did not pre-assemble anything. We never put a screw in. We never put any of the parts in, but we had to almost dry fit and figure it out on our own beforehand. And that took over almost an hour. I'm going to say it was pretty darn close to an hour to do that, which is not a good thing. Right? It does say fast assembly. And I think, as you can see, if you know what you're doing, actually it is fast assembly, right? It's going together quite nicely now. It was figuring it all out that did not go well, and it was not easy, right? And, all I can say is we are not junior at this. We have built more furniture, put more things together. We built my current grooming stand. We built multiple grooming stands over the years. This one just did not have the right instructions. And really, if you're going to do a supportive video, which I think is fabulous, do it like we're doing it at the pace we're doing it now. Show each step, voice over it, say what you're doing. This is the part I'm using. This is where I'm inserting it. This is the pressure I'm using. This is the tool I'm using. Give us some helpful video, look. So the other thing, or other things that are coming up as we go through this, is we're starting to see that the parts and pieces sometimes are, how do I say it? They're fit well. They're actually fit for purpose, but they're not clear. And I want to point that out, right? So, and there's a couple of things I want to point out about these leg extensions. So if you see the leg extensions here, they do not have any covering at all. They're just an open tube. The leg extensions on this end, and we're having a challenge at the moment, but the leg extensions on this end have a foot. That foot is there to fit with the wheel axle, but that is not anywhere referenced in the instructions, and it is not shown clearly in the video at all. So we could very easily swap those parts and not know that we didn't seat the wheel axle appropriately. And you can see, even with all the pre-work that we did, we're finding that there's a few steps that aren't quite working. So as he figures that out, the other thing I want to call out with these open feet, if you put this on soft ground, right? Like I use it on concrete, so probably not a problem. But if you're going to put this on soft ground, so when I take this to a show and the arena is all dirt, that is all going to pack up in here, and that is going to cake up in here. And if you're in grass or mud that's been wet, that's had some, that's had some rain, right? You've got mud. That is a problem. That is just going to collect a giant clod of mud, and it's going to sink. So suddenly your height is going to sink, and with the other side not being the same, and of course ground not being even, your stand is going to sink with your goat on it. With the weight of your goat on it, that is not going to work, right? It's also going to get pretty beat up. And if I use it on concrete and and the goats are wobbling a little bit, as much as you'd like to say it's 100% stable, it's never 100% stable. It is going to bounce around a bit. And that over time is going to put wear and tear on these. So I'm not a fan of that. It needs a cap. It's as simple as that. It just needs a cap on those leg extensions so that it can be used on any type of terrain. Now, what I'm gathering here is the biggest problem we're having with the wheel axle assembly is that it's 3 parts that need to line up perfectly on 2 sides, and that's not an easy task for a single person. So once you get them lined up perfectly, hey, that's probably going to be fantastic, but trying to get things all lined up in the same positioning and the structural integrity, comes from them being at the same height and the same levels. You can see that it's quite the challenge for a single person. I think if you had 2 people doing it, one person holding one side, one person inserting the pin and stabilizing the other side, that is probably the best way to go about it. We are doing this single-handed on purpose, really, so that we can demonstrate, if I were to do this alone, this would be a pain in the rear end, and it would not be something that I would have any fun doing. And the wheels, which are a phenomenal addition, would probably get thrown off to the side, frankly, because I would be frustrated and done. But once we get that figured out, I think the rest of it will go together fairly smoothly. And as you can see, once we had everything figured, it did go together smoothly. A couple of other things I'll note is that especially with activity like this, you are putting some wear and tear on the finish of the stand. Now, certainly we're not scratching the stand up. We've got it left on the box. We are getting frustrated, rightfully so. I told you I would have thrown the wheels out already at this point. So note to self, make sure you understand that first. But the mechanisms to lock things in place. So the pins that hold the height adjustment together, I absolutely love. The knob aspect of putting a screw to stabilize it, the stabilization is amazing. The overuse or the use of this screw over time is going to create finish wear on the paint or on the exterior, right? So you're going to see scratches. You're going to see potential points of rust egress, especially for me who uses this with water around, right, when I'm bathing. Those are areas that are probably going to rust. And that's no fun whatsoever. So that wear and tear that's caused by the design is eventually going to become a problem area if we were to use this consistently for all purposes. Now, I have no intention of using this for all purposes. I cannot use this, right? I can't, not without modification, not without the ramp, not without the ability to modify the height while the goat is on the stand. But I do intend to use this to replace my current show stand. My current show stand is a wrought iron workhorse where this is aluminum. That wrought iron workhorse has been with me for almost 13 years now. It was my main grooming stand for 7 years before it got relegated to the trailer as my travel stand. It is heavily modified and modded. Oh, I think we're almost there. We almost got it. I say we like I'm helping. The heavy modifications that we did to that stand are adding a ramp and adding a hydraulic, well, not a hydraulic, adding an engine lift to the stand assembly so that it can go up and down. All of that is heavy to haul. It has no handles, it has no wheels, it has no side rails. The head portion is not as stable as I would like it to be over the years. It never really was, but over the years it's gotten worse. So there's a lot of improvements over that stand that this stand brings. We're just going to have to do some of the same mods unless new parts, and support structures come out, such as ramp being the critical one. Ability to adjust height is probably not something that this stand will ever have, so we will probably still have to think about how we want to use that. But typically at a show, I have fewer goats. They're going on the stand multiple times, but I also have a second pair of hands to help lift. So, it may not be as big a crisis as it would be if it were my main grooming stand. But it is going to get exposed to water and to conditioner sprays, and we're going to lay brushes on top of it. So if the finish is wearing already just in the assembly process, you can imagine that the finish is going to wear from hoof use as well as from just placing our equipment on it as we're grooming the goats. And that'll be a problem as well, because that will open again more of the rust. So as the opinions keep coming through, I want you to know, we're conscious of time. We're trying to do this with some speed. We did pre-stage everything, which I highly recommend you do until the instructions are updated appropriately. And if ever anything on my feedback I would give to the company right now, hey, Goatzy, is the instructions need help. The video needs help, right? A lot of it feels common sense after you figure it out, but because the parts aren't standard, because they're not labeled correctly, because some stuff that's been pre-assembled is not clear in the instructions or the video, it really throws you off your game and it makes it challenging. And again, just as a reminder, there's no tool list with this, so you're on your own to figure out what tools you have, what tools you want, and what tools you need. Thankfully, we have them, but again, it took some time there. The part that we're working on now is really interesting, actually. That part was not pre-assembled. It was not called out in the instructions, and it was not called out in the video because it was already pre-assembled in the video, but we were able to figure out where it was supposed to go. We had no idea what we were supposed to do with it, though. You go through the entire instructions end to end, and you're like, okay, there's never a mention of this part. What is it doing? Is it for a future thing that might come out? Is it for attachments that are going to come out later? Right? We had no idea. So we almost were going to leave that off until I watched the video again through, and a video, to its credit, goes through the full assembly and then the breakdown for the portability, right? It shows how to fold it down and carry it off from where you are. Again, it does it very fast, so it's really hard to catch all the details, but it did show me enough so that we figured out when it's folded, when the legs are folded down for portability, that actually is a storage holder, for lack of a better word, for your parts, like your headstand parts that are going to come off each time you fold it down for portability. All right, so we are getting there. I think we are almost at the point where we're going to flip this sucker over and put the headstand on, and that's really the last step before we install the side rails, which, as just like my current stand, the side rails are just lift on, lift off. So that's pretty exciting. So 25 minutes after we spent an hour figuring it out. I think 6 minutes of that, maybe 5 minutes of that would have been cut off if we had two hands working on the wheel axle. And here's an interesting dynamic, right? So all that work to get the wheels on, and they have to come off in order for it to be usable. So this is not a stand. Well, what do I want to say about this as I'm looking at it now? You can adjust the height of the legs to match the height that the wheels added. But with wheels on it, I don't know that I would trust having an animal on top. Oh, we're gonna have to see how easily that would roll. I'm not sure I like it now. And I mean, that's nice, right? It's certainly lightweight, but it's still on an angle. And I don't think it can even out. Because if you move the pins one more time to the next height level, oh, mate, no. It's gonna be too tall now. Yeah, they don't match. That's better. See, now there's another thing that isn't called out in the instructions or the video. The legs are not spaced universally, the leg extenders. They are actually spaced differently, so obviously we had them installed upside down, I guess. Better, not perfect. Yeah, you would have to take the whole wheel assembly off.
Well, no, I meant with the bar. See if that would match up. This is such a pain in the rear right here.
Yeah, well, let's leave it for now. Right, that's just more feedback, right? It's not usable as we can see it with the wheels. It is possible that we might be able to get this thing leveled out if we take the wheel assembly off, flip the leg extensions around, and match them up. But I still don't know that I'm comfortable using it with the wheel assembly on, given what we're seeing of the stability. So yeah, I think the wheel assembly is a really nice to have, but based on usability, I don't think I would ever use it. I would just have the thing set to the right height. I would fold down the legs and I would carry it with the handles. I don't think I would ever use the wheels. So let me tell you this. Here's what I think. I think you, forgive the term, but you shit can the wheel and the wheel axles and you use that cost to add a ramp. That would be the ideal state. And the ramp, by necessity, you can see how high this stand can get. It does get to a really good height. I would love to be able to use it at a height like that. I cannot get an animal up on that. So the ramp by necessity would have to be long, probably a fold-up ramp, right? Probably a 2-stage ramp, so that it's not too steep. And I don't know that that's the equivalent cost of the wheel assembly, but honestly, that's where I would go. I would take the money out of the wheel assembly and put it into a ramp. The stand itself is lightweight enough and secure while it's folded down enough to be able to handle using the handles. The handles are a really nice addition. The wheels, to me, as I'm putting this together, while I thought they were a cool value, I'm not seeing the value in it anymore. Just my opinion, but that is for sure where I'm at with this. Everything else, quality-wise, like I said, I mean, it's sturdy enough. I wouldn't be without. Let me say this: the platform is stable enough where I would feel comfortable having the goats on it. The weave is nice in one sense, right? It's very comfortable on their feet. It's comfortable on my hands. It's not so great because poop will be too big to fall through. And again, I have minis, even mini tinies. No poop would fall through this. On my stand that I currently use, the weave is a bit more open. My older stand is also that open weave, so poop falls through and does not have to, I don't have to collect it off the stand. It goes to the ground and I can sweep it up. So that, not so sure I like, right? It's just, it adds an element of them stepping in their own excrement instead of it just falling through to the ground and then having something to sweep up. So not a fan of that either. That needs to probably be changed if I were to help design this. All right, we are almost done, guys. I know this has been a long one. Was not the intent. We actually tried to make it short, so that'll tell you how difficult it is to actually get this thing assembled. And there's a couple of other things from a portability perspective I'm not loving. Right, so in order for all of this to become portable, everything needs to be taken apart and either put into storage underneath the stand itself. So a lot of steps with that, or it needs to just be carried separate. And that's honestly probably what I would be doing, is I would just take the whole head assembly off and carry it separately, rather than take the head assembly off and secure it to the bottom and use pins and more screws and more things. It's just more steps that I don't want, especially at the end of a show when we're trying to get loaded up and get home. Not what I'd want to be doing. I'd just be pulling the side rails off, pulling the headstand off, flopping the legs back in, which still requires work to do, right? We have to take the pin out, but that's expected. That's the only way the platform would stay stable. You have to drop the leg extensions, fold it up, carry it off, and then I would be carrying it off in 3 pieces. So yeah, there's a couple of things I would probably improve if I could. Other than that, I really like the concept. I really like the price point. I really like the fact that this is a small company that is doing what they feel is the best for, folks that have goats and sheep and need to work them. I think this makes it affordable, easy for entry, right? You don't need to have a whole herd in order to have a stand that's workable. And I think if the stand is not intended to move and you get rid of the wheel assembly, you adjust it to the height you need, it's fantastic, right? It's got all the things you need. It's well built. I've noted a couple of things about the finish getting a little messy, right? But again, depending on how you plan to use it, it may not be a problem. All the knobs and handles are nicely constructed, but there are a couple of other things that I wanted to call out as well. So one of the things, and it's the step we're going to do now, is the pin and spacer that's going to go here, or the screw and spacer, helps it's on camera, that is going to go here to hold this part of the head harness together, well, to hold it at a specific space so that your lock works, right? So that's how you lock your goat in, is you move this around just to their head. This needs to be a stable space, so there's a spacer and a screw. The metal is threaded on one side, so you use a screw without a nut, and the threaded side is facing the goat. So that means that the screw is going to go through this from front to back, and the screw is going to stick out of the back here. And I have a problem with that because that's facing the animal. Now, in theory, they're locked into the head halter here, so they should not be able to touch that. But that's a danger point. It should be facing the other way. And because it's threaded without a nut, threaded in the metal and without a nut, if you strip it, which you're going to do when you take it apart from time to time, it's just going to naturally happen. Now you're on the hook for hunting for a nut that's going to fit, and it's just more parts and pieces that are facing the direction of the animal and not the exterior. So I do have a problem with that as well. It's not as bad as some of the other things I've called out, but that is something that I would be concerned about. And here's a really good view of how the finish can get worked up. Yeah, there you go. Right? We haven't done anything with this other than put it together. Just by kind of touching the other pieces of metal, you've already got a rough spot here. The finish is off. Again, for the price point, this thing is fantastic. It's got a lot of value. And depending on what your operation is doing, it could be your workhorse stand, or like my plan is, it's going to be my portable stand that goes in the trailer and goes with me to shows. But it needs some improvements. It needs feet on the leg extensions. We need to get rid of the wheel assembly. We need a ramp so that we can realistically use it at the height that I would like to use it. The food hanger, actually, let me put that on just to show you. The food dish is fabulous. It's fold up, right? And it fits in the holder quite well. It would be nice and tight if I had actually unfolded it. But you get the idea, right? They would be able to, the goat would be locked in and they would be focused on eating rather than on what you're doing back here. So all of that is fabulous. The instructions need work. The lock-in part for the head halter is also a bit of a problem. It has a very slight angle to it, so we'll show you how this works in a second, but the lock mechanism, which is really just a piece of metal welded on, and the welds look good, by the way. It has a very slight angle to it, and if you drop it, it doesn't have a cap, right? So it can go either direction, and if you drop it in the opposite direction than it doesn't lock in as securely. And it's not possible to know, I mean, when you're moving fast and you're moving goats, it's not possible to notice that really teeny tiny angle that it has. So you're going to be futzing with that, and that's exactly what I would call it. You'll be futzing around with, did I put it in right? Why is this not holding? Oh, I got to flip it around. And meanwhile, you've got a goat that's trying to escape from the head halter while you're playing around with getting it locked in. So let's see if we can show you. That's the right way. That's the wrong way. And the right way, much better fit, much better function. So really, it's a memorization game. If you have the angle, if you have the piece, the lock-in piece, facing the support bar, that's the way it works. If it's facing the locking pin, that's the way it doesn't fit as well. So yeah, a couple of things that need some clarity. And I think it moves smooth, right? I don't want to take away from the wheel assembly being nice to have, but I just can't see me using it when it sets the stand at an angle, and it creates a bit of instability for the stand. So I am going to cut it here. Assembly is complete. Now we're just going to play around with it a bit. Next step for me is I'm actually going to put it into use. I am going to put goats up on it. We're going to do my normal grooming videos. You'll see I'm going to target my smaller animals so I can get them up on it. And we're going to see what it looks like after it's been used for several weeks, not just once or twice. It is not going to get used for bathing. Bathing is done for the season. And it really wouldn't be one that I would recommend to use for bathing, just based on its makeup, its material, and the fact that it's got some opportunity for rust already. But I hope you enjoyed just a little bit of a different thing. Again, a big shout out to Goatzy for taking the risk to send this to me free of charge and let me give them in public my open, honest opinion of this unboxing and assembly, and then soon to be after use. So again, stay tuned for seeing this in use. And even after we put it through its paces here in the barn, it is going to go into the trailer as my take to the show stand. And so in the future, spring 2026 show, we will show it in the arena at the show and see how it does there. So we've got lots of performance tests that we're going to put it through. Thank you again to Goatzy for the product. Thank you to Farm Hubby for having the patience to work through this with me. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And thank you all for watching. I hope you had a fabulous day wherever you are in this world. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, be kind. Bye for now.